I always talk about this notion of intentionality. So, if I haven't reached out and be like, yo, man, because we get busy and life happens. Um, and if we aren't being intentional about making that space for each other, like we have to be intentional about creating the spaces and the opportunities to connect with each other, to express what we're doing right now, to build each other up.
What's going on, everybody? I'm glad that you're back. I'm very excited for this next brother that we have coming up next. You'll hear two brothers give each other flowers, speak truth to power, and why that is so important for black men in various spaces, and also how important it is for us brothers to be intentional about building safe spaces for us to connect. Enjoy. Welcome back, everybody. I want to thank everyone for coming back with us, and I'm very happy for those that are joining us for the first time. My name is Octavius. I'm also known as the Urban Thinker, and we have another dope brother with us today. We have a father, husband, and a health and equity advocate. Brother, if you can introduce yourself, please do.
Hey, thanks, good brother. My name is Dwayne Wharton. Yeah, the who you are question. I don't know. Like this. We're made up of lots of different things. But
Yeah.
you and I have connected through our work around supporting Black men and youth in the city.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think that's probably what I'm most proud of. The whole health and equity advocate is, really looking at the conditions in which our communities have been placed under, and what can
Mm-hmm.
we do, like proactively, to make sure that we're made whole. So I'm coming from a career in the nonprofit space. Worked for some amazing organizations over the years in Philly and also in national reach. Did a stint in the Peace Corps as well, um, and have been back in Philly, really just trying to make a difference with what I have and where I am. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think in our connection, I was working for an organization, the Food Trust,
Yep.
around healthy
Yep.
food access. Everything from improving retail offerings in corner stores to farmers markets and big policy work around supermarket access and getting public dollars to support it in our neighborhoods. Moved into the larger support around Black male health with like a number of issues, as you know, with the Mayor's Commission on African American Males.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from our education system to our economic health, and health is determined by lots of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've moved into my independent space as the founder and principal of Just Strategy. So we're a mission-driven consulting firm that works mostly with nonprofits, local
Mm-hmm.
and national, as well as foundations, and really trying to help them, think about how racial equity specifically has played out historically,
Mm-hmm.
and how they have an obligation and where the opportunities are to again do right by us. So that's a bit of a summary. So
That's a good summary because I know when we connected, I was excited to meet you first. I'm not gonna lie, I did look. I've looked you up on several occasions before I met you, and the resume was phenomenal because
appreciate it, bro.
when I look at a black man that is doing work and in the space that I would love to be in, and it's for black men,
Mm-hmm.
I cannot reach out to you and talk to you. I think that was one goal of mine is to actually like sit down and meet with you, and I
Appreciate
think we just hit it off. So yeah, I want to say thank you for the summary, but I do have one question for you.
it. Yeah.
Um, what's one thing you love about being a black man?
Mm. It's funny. Like, there's this meme going around. Like, I love being black. That
Yeah.
shit is dangerous, but it's cool, right? And I think not getting too corny, but this whole notion of like the beautiful struggle that
Yeah.
that Brother Coates has titled his book, and it is, man, like our collective experiences have strengthened us in a way in which we show up in
Hmm.
the world where
Yeah.
we're unparalleled. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you the strength, the courage, the honor in which we hold ourselves is unparalleled. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like the
Yeah.
cool factor is a thing. Like, the emulation that, folks admire us. Like they hate us and they admire us at the same time. Right.
Yep.
And being a black man, for me, it's so funny because lots of other people don't have this kind of obligation of like representing their race. And I think it's
Hmm.
healthy for us to kind of shed that. But
Hmm.
that being said, though, yeah, I recognize how I show up in the world, how people
Yeah.
perceive me, um, and it can be a burden, but I love that, and it's just special. It's really
Yeah.
special to be a black man.
I'm glad that you said they honor us, but then they hate us, because
Yeah,
it lets me think. Um, one, we have a lot of power that we may not be able to tap into all the time.
for sure.
But then it also has me think. I'm a Marvel fan, DC fan, and when I think of what you just said, I think of Superman.
Mm-hmm.
I also can say Black Panther, but
Mm-hmm.
they admired Superman, but they also didn't like what he was doing. It's the same thing with Spider Man. He was
Yeah,
doing a lot of good for the community, but PPD, police officers, did not like him. And I
yeah,
think that's one
yeah,
thing that we do, is that they admire what we bring to the table, but they don't like us when it comes to how we move and how much power we
yeah,
have.
yeah, for sure. And that's been historical, right?
Yeah.
Um, the For me, I love the time in which we're in. I think it's probably been throughout history, but the way that we as black men like get to
Hmm.
honor and connect, and that's why I appreciate you having me on the show. I appreciate what
Yeah.
you do, and you talked about how you looked me up, but again, when I got to meet you, and as a younger brother, just the way that you
Yeah.
show up, and the way that you have like paused the busy work that we've all been trying to do and made space for us to be vulnerable, to acknowledge that we have each other.
Yeah.
Um, is really special. You know what I'm saying? And you don't just do this in this podcast. It's just how you show up, and
Thank
I
you.
greatly appreciate it, and it's something that's needed. You know, so
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. And I think that's how I love to show up in this world.
mhm.
And like you said, creating a space for black men to be vulnerable, honest, and also keep each other accountable. I think
Yeah,
that's
no
one
doubt.
thing that I love to bring to the table.
Mhm.
I do want to dig a little bit deeper, because I know the questions that I have for you and that the audience will be listening to at some point.
Yeah.
They're gonna love it because,
Mm.
one, I love you, and I know the questions that you're going to give are going to be very poignant on black men, and then how we can move forward and also grow together.
I hope so.
But I do, but I do want to like dig a little bit deeper within you.
Yeah.
So, at what moment did you discover your blackness? Because I know you said you love being a black man,
Yeah.
but when you discovered that blackness and that you were different,
Mm.
when did you discover that moment?
So I was born and raised in Philly in the Germantown section, and
Hmm.
for us, as everything is like block to block. We were a
Hmm.
bunch of young black boys who found each other, and they ended up kind of being your play pals, but then they become your brothers for life.
Yeah.
And I think being black was just normal, and I didn't think outside of what was happening of my community.
Hmm.
I think when I was probably 7 or 8, I have a younger brother who's hearing impaired, and
Okay.
we went to a camp at Gallaudet University in the Washington D.C. area, where we were there for like language immersion as we were learning, American Sign Language, and just
Hmm.
being with other families who were experiencing kids who were deaf. And, I think we were one of the few black families there. And, I remember this little white girl like started rubbing my hair. She's like, fuzzy wuzzy hair. I was like, what the
Mm.
hell? You know what I'm saying? And of course, you recognize race,
Mm.
and our skin color was different, but the fact that like this kid making a big deal about it, and I don't think she was doing it out of malice, you know,
Yeah.
for her, I don't think she had exposure either. But I definitely like recognized at that moment, like, okay, I'm standing out for this per se. But I don't think at that time I had any judgment tied to it. Um,
Okay.
it's funny, like as I got older, and thinking about like the formative years in school and being back in the community, you know, you started to hear from other black people that you know you were talking white and
Yeah.
that you know obviously you know you were different. You know, I remember it's funny because you know for the most part I've never been like a thug dude. You know what I'm saying? Like you know I grew up with
Hmm.
with the homies who would do what
Yeah.
they
They was
did, but you
around.
know, right, correct. And
Yeah.
you know I don't feel like I was out of place, but that just was not my thing. But I just remember
Hmm.
Cat was like, 'cause I was just happy, right? He's like, "Yo, man, you acting gay," and I was just like, I was like, I am happy because you know that's
Yeah.
the definition of gay. And they're like, what the hell are you talking about, right? So
Yeah.
as a black man, I feel like there were some normative behaviors that were expected, and I didn't prescribe to that. And I never felt out of place and ostracized, but I recognized that you know we come in lots of different shapes and forms,
Yeah.
and you know I'm fortunate in that I was able to grow up in my own skin and develop into who I want to be, um, in ways that I think a lot of us as black men don't have the opportunity to.
Yeah. Well, one, I appreciate you for telling that story.
Yeah.
Um, I've never had an experience like that, so that's why I said thank you.
Mhm.
When it comes to like rubbing my head or anything, I've never had that experience. I think my experience was more verbal,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially in high school. Um,
Where'd you go?
I went to Roman Catholic,
Okay.
um, and when you have people from different areas of the city,
Mm-hmm.
you had a lot of people that did not know how to speak to certain people, how to express themselves around certain people. Um, and I was a child that was, I am the epitome of I am my mother's child.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
I'm that case. You know, it's a great
and I
woman.
think, yeah, and I think that I was always told express yourself, respect people, but at the end of the day, don't give someone the ammunition to make you seem less than who you are. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I ran with that. And I've said this to all the other black men that I knew because I'm not going to hand you something to make me look different than who I am. And I think at Roman, I was more of a individual that I had to like combat individuals that look different than me, not educate.
Mm-hmm.
I had to say, well, yeah, no, that's not how you talk to me, and I'm not here to explain it to you or
No doubt.
educate you on it. And this was
No
me
doubt.
as a freshman. And I think the experience that you had with your friends in your
Mm-hmm.
neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
I've had those experiences
Mm-hmm.
where I can code switch.
Right.
I
Right.
can be around my friends, talk a certain way, but when I get in meetings or in front of other people, I can talk.
Right.
But I was like, I shouldn't have to do that. I should be able to talk the way I need to in any
Right.
space.
Right. Right.
And when I had those changes, you had a lot of people saying, "Why are you talking like that? Why are you doing this and why are you
Right.
doing that?"
Right. Right.
I was just like, "Look, I'm being me, like you said,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
being myself." Um, but I've always learned that even with my uncle, who is a very expressive man, a very expressive black man, and I think you've seen me express myself with tears,
Mm-hmm.
words, emails. I think those are things that are key for black men.
Yeah.
But when we grow up, I think when we're younger, we're allowed to cry, we're allowed to be upset, we're allowed to be angry. And I
Mm-hmm.
think as we get older, we lose touch on that. And I
Yeah.
think that's one thing that I want to learn more about you is how
Mm-hmm.
did you, as a black man, going through this space of I am happy,
Mm-hmm.
how did you explore your feelings as a black man when it came to I am old enough to express myself? My parents taught me how to express myself.
Mm-hmm.
When did it get to a point where you just said, you know what, this is how I feel,
Yeah.
and I'm okay with it?
It's funny you say that, yo, because you know this is maybe a combination of the previous question and this one,
Hmm. Yep.
because I went to Catholic school K through 8,
Mm-hmm.
and we were
Yeah.
pretty much with the same group of like 20, 25 kids that
Mm-hmm.
entire time, all black, all grew up in Germantown. And
Okay.
I was sent to Cardinal Doherty High School in
Mm.
ninth grade. And when I
Mm-hmm.
got there is when I think I recognized that for me, like race was being imposed upon me in harmful
Okay.
ways. So
Okay.
everything from like the way that they were like disciplining students to like being excluded from like the history context to even just talking about like European um, indoctrination of
Mm-hmm.
Christianity on African
Yeah.
people. We couldn't have those conversations in ninth grade, and I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking about that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And as a result, I was like, I have a question, and it's like, yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm questioning like all of this, and like, get out,
Mm-hmm.
or like you'd be like, a white boy would like try to like stun on you, and you got to check
Mm-hmm.
them. So like, I had
Yeah.
this crazy reputation early on as being a troublemaker because I got into a fight or two.
Yeah.
I was always suspended. I lasted
Mm-hmm.
3 months at Cardinal Docker, and I'm
Mm.
naming like racism as that, and
Yeah.
institutional racism, that it was just like maybe that wasn't their intent, but the way that they
Mm-hmm.
structured that institution was
Mm-hmm.
designed to trip somebody like me up. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And I ended up kind of on this journey where I ended up at 4 different high schools my career, and again every single one was different,
Yeah.
and I think that has helped even actually like prepare me to like show up in different spaces, as a black man and still be my whole self.
Yeah.
And now I've built this career out of being able to speak truth to power
Mm.
in ways that for some they don't want to hear it and they close the door, but for many others, they're receptive to it and those doors continue to open.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like for me, um, the way I express myself, I mean,
Yeah.
you've seen me do it on several occasions, but as a black man, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's not hard for me to express myself to other black men.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like it's hard to express myself to others that may not know my background, that may not know me, and now I have to educate them on me,
Mm-hmm.
and they probably also have assumptions and preconceived notions of, okay, this is a black man, where is he coming from,
Yeah.
who is he, what does he know, and also who does he know.
Yeah.
And I think that's a hard thing to always try to have in your head.
Mm.
But when you just said speak truth to power, I think that was one thing that I observed about you. I observed that you always came into a room and said, you know what, I know y'all are thinking about this, but we also have to think about X, Y, and Z, and also A, B, and C.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that I've grabbed from you, um, because we can't just think one track minded when we're focusing on black men and boys and how to move them forward. And for you, I think one thing that I've noticed about you is the way you express yourself. You're very strategic, and I love that.
Thank you.
I do. Um, and I always wondered, like, in this world, as a black man, navigating this space is hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna just be completely honest. And I think for you, I don't know how you did it with so much grace, but how did you navigate this world as a black man gracefully,
Yeah.
but also with so much strength?
Yeah. I appreciate that, bro. And in terms of like being able to express myself, and I mentioned like the 4 high school thing,
Mm-hmm.
there's always a level of calculation. I think this is maybe unfortunate, like, for me,
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, being kicked out of the school and showing up in new spaces, I had to observe what was happening in all of those spaces and where was my lane,
Mm-hmm.
and how can I try to be true to myself, but also like have some like success in that space, and success meaning like not getting my ass kicked,
Mm-hmm.
by, cats because I was a new boy showing up who wasn't from the neighborhood,
Yeah.
and also like how I can like advocate for the things I care about, etc., in ways that were going to continue to allow me to like have a livelihood in life. So it's funny you say that because my wife and some friends would say like you know I am probably like the most open closed book that you'll ever meet because people feel
Same.
like they know me and they connect, but you
Yep.
only get so much,
Yep.
and that is real, and I recognize that, and I don't even know if it's conscious, but
Mm-hmm.
and talking about code switching, just
Yeah.
depending on that environment, I'm the same person, but how I'm showing up is going to be different. So if it's at a foundation board, being
Mm-hmm.
able to have that conversation. And then with my homies, it's a different conversation. Quick side note, I was actually on the board of this institution and I saw the president, the executive director of that
Yeah.
institution walking down the street, and I was with the homies. I said hello. She put her head down. She got the fast walk on. Didn't even
Mm-hmm.
recognize that I am her damn board member because I was just, not in a suit
Regular.
and showing up as myself, right? So like that
Mm-hmm.
that that was a lesson about how they see us and they don't see us, etc.
Yeah.
Um, but it gets complicated, man. And I'm also a Gemini, which is funny. Like Gemini's a fake. Like, and I'm also a middle child. So like all
Yeah.
that stuff I think is real. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can show up in different ways, and that's okay. It's
Yeah.
so funny because this summer I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity,
Mm-hmm.
and 2 dozen of us just hit Europe this summer, and
Really?
tore it up, had a good time,
Okay.
and that was that. But this spring, I was with the homies from the neighborhood, and these are like three
Mm-hmm.
white men who were like middle-aged Jewish dudes, and we're hanging out in Austin, and I also had a great time. Both of those things are still me. I'm
Yeah.
not fake in either one of those places. I just have various interests. Recognize that I'm not gonna go to a hip hop show with the three boys I was in Austin with because that's just not what we do. But I
Yeah.
can also go to this other show where cats are rocking out, and I'm gonna have a good time as well. And lots of
Mm-hmm.
cats can't switch hats like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I took a kayaking trip with those dudes. You know what I'm saying? And like, yo, brothers, who wants to kayak? You know what I'm saying? Trying to get cats to go camping with me on my 40th. You're like,
Yeah.
the homies are like, get the hell out of here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, it's varying interests. You show up differently depending on what the circumstances and who you're dealing with, but you can still be
Yeah.
authentic in all those times and spaces.
Okay. So I do want to ask you because I call the black men that I learned from the first black men that I've learned from. My black man Rushmore. That's my
Mm,
all my uncles,
okay, that's what's up.
and I would say that I have smaller ones around the main one, and I
Yeah,
believe that you are on one of them.
I appreciate it, bro.
With other brothers that I've learned from, taking advice from,
Mm,
that I will call brothers in this space of just black male achievement. But I do want to ask you, because I know I've said on several occasions, for you navigating this world, like I said so graciously, who did you learn from? Because there are a lot of black men in this world that we can pinpoint,
yeah,
but they may be 40 years older than us, or even
yeah,
have someone that are younger than us that we learn from. So, who did you learn from
right.
to navigate this world again so graciously and with so much strength?
Yeah. That's a great question, and it gets tricky for me because my mom like
Mm-hmm.
remarried like 4 times, right, and
Mm-hmm.
included my biological father who really just wasn't present and had like a whole
Yeah.
host of like complicated things in his life, right. So that
Mm-hmm.
relationship was strained,
Yeah.
you know, and I have some uncles as well, 2 of them, and again, love them, but it was hard because their lives and their experiences just gave them a whole other like set of things that were very complicated.
Yeah.
Um, and I definitely had them as influences, but that was to like the be tough. You know what I'm saying? And like,
Mm.
and I will say this, right? Like, I wasn't a thug dude, but you weren't gonna punk me. Like nobody
Yeah.
was, right? I was not going to be exploited. You weren't going to take anything from me, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
stand strong when you need to. And I've carried that with me, as well as like all
Yeah.
the homies I grew up with. The old heads on the block, again, it wasn't like many cats who were like, you know, thinking about like being an intellectual or sitting down and reading. It just wasn't that. Cats were hanging
Mm-hmm.
on the corners. Cats were hustling. Cats were drinking. Um, cats were stealing cars. It was like a sport around the way, and
Yeah.
I appreciated all the excitement and around it, but that just
Mm-hmm.
wasn't me either.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
early on, I had a seventh grade teacher, Mr. Joseph Williams, and this
Mm-hmm.
is a cat from Germantown. Ended up playing in the NFL, so he was like a huge
Okay.
cat who was mad cool,
Yeah.
and he would tell all of us young black men, like, first you're a gentleman and a scholar, and just having that instilled in us every single day really
Mm-hmm.
was impactful. He taught us how to play chess. He was like able to like get all that knucklehead energy focused in ways where we weren't like you know like running rampant over like the women, the young girls in the
Yeah.
class. You know what I'm saying? Like he
Yeah.
was exactly what we needed at that time. I'm going to say, there was Father Flood, who was a white man at the, Catholic school that I attended in the church. And I was an altar
Mm-hmm.
boy, right? And, I ended up, going into the CYO, the
Okay.
Catholic Youth Organization. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
Nikki Harmon, shout out to her, but became like her vice president. And then she went off to college. I became the president. And, we did stuff for the community. And it was like a lot of like,
Okay.
you know, basketball and like, stuff for Halloween and all. But it really gave us a safe space. So I didn't have to be on the
Okay.
corner the whole time. And there was a different outlet. Mr.
Okay.
Gay did Vacation Bible School, and
Mm-hmm.
we would go and like get our snacks and hang out with him and his wife and all, and that was every single summer growing up. So there are lots of folks, but I'm going to name Will Crawford and
Mm.
Gene Leiter. These are two
Okay.
men in higher ed. Will Crawford was the father of my good friend Sana and Amir,
Mm-hmm.
and they were cute girls who lived in the neighborhood, and I'd be riding on my bike over there, and over the years I got to know him as he was like drinking his bud, smoking his cigarettes, watching the Eagles, right, and just would rap
Mm-hmm.
to me, and then it became that time to think about college, and he was like, "What are you trying to do? Where do you want to go, etc." And then he's like, "Let me introduce you to my buddy because he worked in admissions at Kutztown University. Let me
Okay.
introduce you to this brother who is in admissions at Westchester University." So I did a
Mm.
summer like week up there, and I was like, "Yo, if this is college, I'm trying to be there." And if it wasn't for him getting me
Mm-hmm.
into the university after four high schools and like having a horrible academic track record, I would not
Mm-hmm.
have been able to get into higher ed and get my degree and continue on my educational career. But like, something that both of them saw in me,
Mm-hmm.
really gave me like the foundation I needed to, try to build a life for myself. So there have been folks, and then there's like some cats who come in episodically here and there who like check
Yeah.
you when you act like a knucklehead, and like
Yep.
you never know the impact they make on you. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot of folks, man.
I hear you. I think that's why I said it's a lot of other Mount Rushmores,
Yeah,
Black Mount Rushmores that I have.
I appreciate that
Um,
reframing.
I got to, brother. That's how I keep my headspace correct because I'm allowed to build things like that for myself and say, okay, these are the black men that are here for me.
Yeah,
What can I take from them? And then when I move past this first one that I still run back to, I have questions for. They're the ones that are pushing me forward, and y'all are more of the brothers that are holding doors open for me.
no doubt.
When I say holding doors, that means you've been through all the things that you've been through, and now you got to turn around and say, "Hey, Octavius, I hear you, but you might want to go this way because I've been down this road before. But I can't hold your hand going through this door." And I think that's one thing that I admire about all the black men that I've connected with.
Appreciate it.
They're not big on holding hands.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
they're more about go ahead. If you need to come back, I'm right here. It's more of like a Mr. Miyagi kind of thing. I'll
Yeah.
be here,
Well,
but
I will say, yo, that it evolves, right?
yeah,
So, the homies I grew up with, and I think like none of us had dads, yo. So we were the
mhm,
support for each other, right?
yeah,
And like they became like my brothers and fam,
mhm,
and that's for life. And
yeah,
in college, I got the homies I came in with, and we are still connected. And
mhm,
we cut up a lot together, and some of us didn't make it through the university, but still did all right in life, right?
yeah,
And like they're always going to be there. Again, I pledged,
mhm,
and I would say probably like those are the cats. Like again, most of us again didn't have dads in our lives, first generation college students, um,
mhm,
and pushed you to graduate, pursue a higher degree. Like we all kind of like were on a trajectory of like finding our wives and getting married and having kids and like trying to like build good lives for ourselves in support of
mhm,
each other, who would celebrate you and push you. You know what I'm
yep,
saying? And through that, the cats I'm naming, like we named that we love each other, yo. You know what I'm
mhm,
saying? And it was kind of pushing you like, yo, get it together. But it is kind of full circle when there's like this embrace that is
yeah,
happening. And I see like a couple of the old heads in the frat like tear up. I'm like, these like super macho cats, like get all reminiscent, you know what I'm saying? Now
yeah,
they got some gray hair. And it's interesting how it comes full circle though. So
mhm,
I think, you might experience that as well.
yeah, yeah. I do. I know. I do want to. I know I gave you a lot of titles in the beginning. I said father,
Mm-hmm.
husband, health and equity advocate. Um, but how do you represent yourself? I know we talked about the different hats that you wear.
Mm-hmm.
How do you represent Dwayne Wharton as a whole when it comes down to being a father, being a husband, and then also being a professional? Because as a black man, those things kind of like come closer and closer together as you become a better father, a better husband, and also a better professional.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I don't know, man. Like, it's funny when people put titles on you and those kind of
Hmm.
expectations. Like, I've always been kind of leery on that, and I think that's
Yeah.
one of the things I gotta get over for myself is like this. Well, there's a recognition that I am like flawed, yo. You know what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
being able to kind of see it in real time sometimes is
Yeah.
tough. So, as a husband, as a
Hmm.
father, like just imagine like if somebody was like walking around filming you
Yeah.
and you got to replay how you showed up at that time. And like it's cringeworthy sometimes, right? Like as a
Hmm.
young man and like
Yep.
how I showed up as a father, as a husband. So I'm a work in progress, bro.
Mm.
And I don't think I'll ever completely be fully formed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just try and just gonna keep trying.
Yeah.
Um, my girls now are 22 and 21, and both about to graduate December and May from
Okay.
Howard, and they're
Okay.
dope. And they themselves are still trying to figure it out, yo. And I'm like, yeah, I guess, and even for my nephew who just graduated from Westchester, and
Hmm.
my nephews and nieces who still haven't quite figured it out, and they look at you and they think that you have figured it out. Like, nah, dude,
No.
like I'm just trying to keep moving forward, Like,
Yeah.
and there we are never fully formed. Like I didn't show up like this because
Hmm.
if you only understood, like there are going to be struggles, but how do you pick yourself up from that and keep
Hmm.
it moving, and how do you
Yep.
allow people to help get you up and keep it moving? Like that's what's key.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know, like title and how I describe myself. I don't know. I would just say a work in progress, bro.
Well, one, I want to say thank you for saying that because that's key as well. Because I feel like black men, I feel like everybody, but mainly me being as a black man, we're a continued work in progress. And I'm glad that you said if you had a camera on yourself every single day, not like vlogging, not like
Hmm.
for YouTube, but an
Yeah,
actual camera that
exactly.
you were able to let me rewind the tape and see how I did today
Hmm.
as a black man and say, okay, I am flawed. I am. a work in progress. There are some things that I am successful at. Um, but when I look at myself, because that's the person I got to look at every day,
That's right.
go to sleep every day. Um, when I lay down, did I do a good job for me in my eyes? Did I do a good job? And I want to say first, thank you for saying out loud, I do not know, because it's key for me to hear as a black man to say, you know what, I don't have to have everything figured out right now. Even before, when I was younger, I was thinking, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, I should do this. No, you need to take your time, have faith in God, and move forward. And if you mess up, you mess up.
Yeah.
And when you said you're a work in progress, I think that you kind of answered this question, but I think when I ask about expectations and societal expectations and how you overcame them, I can just hear you saying, I'm a work in progress. Like, I'm still overcoming some expectations, but I do want to ask the question of, you have expectations for yourself. Um, what are they? Like,
Yeah.
as far as those expectations, and
Yeah.
I know you kind of shy away from societal expectations and not worry about the outside world, because
Yeah.
I told you I observe you,
Yeah.
and I think you may have internal expectations. What are they, if you have any?
Ah, great question, yo. Huh.
Hmm.
What are my internal expectations? Yeah, I think I'm a reflective person, and also as we're talking about this, I'm like, I don't know if I have to have that answer. Like,
Hmm.
I don't. It's just funny. Like, I don't make New Year's resolutions. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like, I have
Hmm.
things that I want to do.
Yeah.
I have interests that I'm pursuing, but I don't feel the pressure again to like get it right and have it figured out. So again,
Hmm.
that's a hard question for me. Um,
Okay.
I left my 20+ year career in like the nonprofit space because it
Hmm.
was time. I
Mm.
didn't make a rash decision to do that. I started planting the seeds, even though I didn't even know I was planting the seeds, like three
Yep.
years prior to that. And
Yeah.
5 years prior to that, I was getting ready for this. So, like, everything I'm doing is building towards something else, but I'm not quite sure what that is yet. So, being a person who is now paid to help other people on their journeys,
Hmm.
I think there's oftentimes like this notion around like you're an expert in this space. And I'm like, dude, I will always shy away from that title.
Yeah.
Like, you are the expert of your own experiences. So the only thing that I really have expertise in is like really having these, I would say, this view of how the world should be,
Mm.
and whatever
Okay.
I'm doing, hopefully, is in pursuit of that. So that,
Hmm.
historically, there's lots of us who have been left out of opportunities. How do we make them whole?
Yeah.
How do we fight against like this fascism that's
Hmm.
happening across the globe? Not even just in
Yeah.
our communities in this country, but this authoritarian, like dictator kind of approach to like people's lives in
Yeah.
ways that are only self-serving and continue to perpetuate these same inequities. Like,
Hmm.
I'm really trying to figure that piece out.
Okay.
Being able to like have an experience in the Peace Corps where I showed up, right? And I was in Mozambique. I was with my new wife.
Hmm.
And, when I was there, I had a bit of a romanticized vision of what I wanted to experience. And
Hmm.
I kind of like is a bit self-fulfilling in that way because I was looking for the joy and looking for the
Hmm.
connection. So when I met my school, head, who when we showed up was like, Mr. Wharton, owe me. I'm like, I owe you.
Mm.
Like, I just met you. He's like, long ago they took my sister from my country. You have married her and have not given me a dowry. So you owe me.
Mm.
And I was like, damn, like that like hit me deeply. I was like, okay, so this brother like recognizes the history of
Yeah.
the African American slave experience. He
Yeah.
kind of recognized that I was like seeking that somehow. and I was moved. You know what I'm saying? So we've like
Mhm.
stayed connected in that way with like great appreciation. But when I was like rolling through Zimbabwe and they were like kicking white farmers off the land, and I was like, that's right, like Africa for the Africans, and I still believe
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm in a taxi. He's like, dude, I am not a farmer. Like, we don't even have food in our country right now. He's like,
Yeah.
they gave the farmland to all the generals and like all the wealthy folks who are not growing land on it. They're just hoarding it. I'm like, damn, I'm just gonna be quiet, yo. I'm just gonna learn. I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna learn. And I
Yeah.
think I've tried to take that along with me of like
Okay.
listening, learning, trying to be a sponge, be observant.
Mhm.
And when I can speak up on something, I will. But
Mhm.
again, I don't have the answers. I'm just trying to like apply what I've learned and give you some of the, this is the history of it. This is where the opportunities might be based on what we've
Yep.
seen, and like how do we help you get there? And
Mhm.
and for me, like I don't have a final destination. It all looks different. Who knows?
Yeah. I do want to ask you, based on the experiences that you've had, um, and what you just shared,
Yeah.
you've seen a lot, and you've also seen the world as far as how they view black men.
Yeah.
They view us in a very unique light, and I think this next question, um, can like bring that out. Hopefully, how do you want society to perceive black men?
Mm. So two quick stories, right? So
Yeah.
when I showed up in Mozambique,
Hmm.
there's a host family that
Okay.
you stay with during your kind of like 3 month orientation, and
Hmm.
we showed up and they were like, oh, y'all all right. Like, what does that even mean? It's like, well, when we heard that the Black Americans were a part of this group, we didn't want them to stay with us because y'all are so violent. I'm like,
Mm.
word. It's like, yeah, we saw Boys in the Hood. I was like, okay. And then
All
they
right.
got over that. It was like, oh, so do you know Oprah? Like, do you know Jordan? I'm just like, so lots of times there's this like the people that I had encountered like really
Mm.
thought that there was this like exceptionalism to like all Black Americans, like we all got it made
Hmm.
here, or
Yeah.
that we were like all living in poverty and super violent and had the hard life. So there was like these stereotypes that the media has portrayed of us really do have an impact on how the world sees us, and I would even say how we see ourselves.
Mm.
In
Hmm.
Spain, I'm there with like a bunch of black men, right? And
Yeah.
we got schooled like where we went into like a restaurant or spoke to someone. They're like, yo, on the real, like keep your head on a swivel. He's like, the way that you have your bag sitting here, nah, bruh, move it between your legs. He's like, get your phone off
Hmm.
the table. Like, you're gonna get got.
Yep.
I'm like, word?
Yeah.
He's
Yep.
like, yo, it's
Yep.
crazy out here. I like,
Told me the
so
same thing.
the way that we talk, like, and for me, I'm like, yo, gun violence is crazy in the city. And for them, they're like, yo, like, the theft is crazy in the city. Like, it's everywhere, right? And like, people are
Yeah.
hyper vigilant about it. So we're walking down the street. We get stopped by these two men who were of Arab descent. And they were
Hmm.
like they said they were from Liverpool. They
Yeah.
were touring in Barcelona, and they were like, "Y'all like Black Americans?" They're like, "Yeah." He's like, "How are you? You having a good time?" Blah blah blah. He's like, "Yo, can you take a photo for us?" And like gave us their phone. We're like, "Word." And they're like, "Yeah, things are kind of gully out here, and we think y'all are probably the only people we can really trust." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Damn." Because there weren't many black people anywhere in Spain. You definitely didn't see any
Hmm.
around. So like of
Yeah.
all these people, like hundreds of people everywhere, the three black men are the ones that you trust. Like that's
The
crazy,
most.
right? It
Yeah.
just blew my mind a little bit, yo.
Yeah.
So how I want to be perceived is just like as a human being first, right?
Hmm.
Um, this notion of exceptionalism. We just talked about how special black men are. Like, yeah, yo,
Yeah.
recognize. Like, I want the world to
Yeah.
recognize, like, yo, black men are dope as hell. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And I definitely, how do we overcome these stereotypes that have been placed upon us, but that we continue to perpetuate as well.
Hmm.
And that being said, I'm just going to show up as how I show up. So you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying. If I'm rocking out to hip hop, or if I'm going to like rock out to some Bob Dylan, let me be.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Let me be.
All of it
Yep.
is dope. You know.
Yep. I know. I know. For me, I had the same experience in Spain. I went to Barcelona for 3.5 months, study
Word.
abroad,
Wow.
and I had a conversation. I was the only black guy, black person in my group,
Mm-hmm.
and they were talking about Las Ramblas and telling us, "Yeah, you can't have stuff out. You can't. Once they shoot things up in the air, don't look up because they're going to go in your pockets. They're going to go
No
in your
doubt.
bag."
No doubt.
and and I told them, I said, so I'm trained in martial arts, two styles, and I told them, I said, I'm by myself most of the time, and are we able to defend ourselves when it comes down to it?
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of looked at me like, what do you mean? I said, if something happens and you're not around or you're not with me, am I able to defend myself and can I call you?
Yeah.
I said, because I can't call my mother. I can't call my instructor. I can't call. I have to defend myself because I
Mm-hmm.
have to get back home. And they kind of looked at me and said, well, if something happens, we don't really know. This has never happened before. I said, there's also no one has ever asked you that question.
Mm-hmm.
No one has asked you that question. I think, um, well, even when you talked about Boys in the Hood, do you know Oprah? Do you know Michael Jordan? We went to Morocco, and again, I was the only black man. They said, "Hey, Barack Obama," and they were like waving at
I
me,
know. Yo.
and I said,
Right.
I'm not Barack." But looking, and even when you explained how like we're perpetuating those stereotypes, like based on your experiences, based on you being a black man and working with black men, what's one thing black males can do to grow together? Like just
Mm,
like build and understand each other and love each other.
mm. Well, I'm gonna take my hat off to you, bro. Like, cause you are creating that space for us to have these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if anyone's listening to this and it something has resonated with them, and you take that with you, and even like for me, like this is an opportunity for me to like be reflective as well, and think
Yeah.
about like how am I showing up for my old heads, but also for my young bulls, and what does that
Mm-hmm.
look like as well. And I always talk about this notion of intentionality.
Mm.
So if I haven't reached out and be like, yo man, because we get busy, and
Yeah.
you and I'm going to say this even for you guys, because we've been trying to have this conversation for a few months, right?
Yeah.
At least a few months. And life happens.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if we aren't being intentional about making that space for each other, and I'm going to say that for me, like because I am like on this journey to like have experiences. It's funny because I'm getting older now, right? I'm 53, and I'm
Mm.
thinking about like, and my homie says like we got 12 good summers left. Like I'm not saying that, like I don't know what that's about. You know what I'm saying? But I'm definitely like forward thinking about like who I want to be, the experiences I want to have, the future I
Mm-hmm.
want to build. But if I'm
Mm-hmm.
not slowing down to bring everybody along with me, and that's going to be a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like even for us, because life happens, and it wasn't
Yeah.
because of any like lack of interest in connecting. It's just
Mm-hmm.
how we are situated from time to time.
Yeah.
But that's not an excuse. Like we have to be intentional about creating the spaces and the opportunities to connect with each other, to express what we're doing right now,
Mm-hmm.
to build each other up.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's it.
Okay. And I think that's one thing that's always on my mind because I don't really care about how society looks at me,
Yeah.
but I'm more aware of changing the narrative and changing the perception of black men.
Yeah.
And I think with this podcast and even the title of the podcast, Middle Brother, is I think you've seen me do this in multiple occasions.
Hmm.
I am also I'm not a middle child, but I am the middle child when it comes to my core family group.
Hmm.
And then I'm also the boy.
Hmm.
So me trying to like hold on to the older generation and say, I hear you, I pay attention to you, I listen to you, to all the teachings that you give me. But then I'm listening to the younger generation say, I hear y'all,
Yeah.
but I got somebody that you can connect with later on that may be able to help you.
Yeah.
But then it's also, I have to translate
Yeah.
from each generation to the next. And it's like information is passed through me.
Yeah. That's
And
what's
I'm
up.
like, I can't be a gatekeeper. I have to give this
Yeah.
information out.
That's right.
And I also have to build those bridges as well. And I think that's one thing that's very hard for me. I'm gonna just be open and honest.
Yeah.
It is hard, but I said to myself, who else is gonna do it if
Yeah.
it's not me?
Yeah.
If I feel like I have a calling to create this bridge or create this connection,
Hmm.
why not do it?
Yeah.
Because I have a network of black men that's phenomenal. I'm gonna
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
be out
Yeah.
there, but it's also that network of black men. We keep each other accountable. We check in, and we love each other. And I think when we embody that and we show everybody,
Yeah.
I think that it resonates with younger individuals. It also resonates with those that are older. Like you said previous, you have some brothers that are macho, but they cry.
Yeah.
And I think that's key. But I do want to, before we end, I do want to ask you, I want to elevate you. I want you to express some things as far as what you got going on. I know you said you got daughters that are about to graduate.
Yeah.
I know you said you're in the space of consulting. So anything that you got going on, family wise, professionally, or even
Yeah.
just in your own journey of Dwayne Wharton, I'm
Yeah.
here to elevate you now, brother.
Appreciate that.
No problem.
Like this entrepreneurial journey is real. Someone
Yeah.
told me like, you eat what you kill. Like so the hunt
Mm,
is on. I've been fortunate, like I said, like, the work that I've done over the years, locally, across the country, nationally, and even globally, has really like afforded me lots of relationships, and
hmm
those opportunities are really showing up now through those relationships. And also now that it's 3+ years old, the good work is speaking for itself, and we continue
Yeah.
to learn and grow and build. You know, the team I'm working with is funny because I've had a few brothers that have come through, um, but it's mostly been a lot of women, to be honest. So I like, that's
Yeah.
a problem. Like, what does that say? So I would like
Yeah.
to see more of us in that space, and how to create opportunities for other black men who
hmm
are interested in kind of leading these conversations, because that voice really isn't there in really prominent ways. So,
hmm
this consulting work is really keeping me busy. So I'm not
Okay.
as involved in the civic stuff as I was.
hmm
I'm largely, here kind of grinding. And also when I'm not here, I'm kind of in the room, like grinding as
hmm
well. And I'm taking these breaks to like refuel myself as well.
Yeah.
But for folks who are kind of interested, like, yeah, just strategies, we are doing workshops around racial equity, trying to help organizations through our assessment work,
hmm
understand how people are experiencing them, where the opportunities might be for them to like really close a gap that exists around the people that they're serving, as well as like even the black and brown folks who are in those organizations doing the serving.
Yeah.
You could be like a great person, great mission driven organization, and still do harm to the
Mm,
people you're supposed to be serving, as well as to the people doing the work. So, like, we're
yeah.
trying to help people understand that and really kind of move through that. Um, Besides that, you know, I'm just looking for opportunities to connect in more ways like this.
Yeah.
I will say the big thing that we've connected on is around policies.
Yeah.
And when I started this organization, it was right before the pandemic. And
hmm
the focus really was, and right before kind of the 2020 racial reckoning that
Yeah.
kind of blew up, and now the air is kind of deflating out of that,
hmm
for lots of folks. Um, but it really was around trying to support community advocacy, how to help
Yeah.
people understand that like the conditions in which you are living aren't by accident, and it's typically not just you experiencing it. It's like
Hmm.
largely like a result of the system and a systemic, and you can translate that issue into a policy opportunity.
Hmm.
And when we do that, then we need to figure out how to advocate and get what you need done so that that issue can be addressed. And that's the big thing that I do want to move into in the future. So for folks who are trying to think about like how to, you know, deal with everything from like, climate justice to
Hmm.
violence in the city to like school funding, like all these things affect our lives every single day. And again, lots of times we think these things are unique to us, but they're not. So for people who
Yeah.
do want to build and work together and try to figure out how we can all get through this, I think I would love to be connected to them.
Okay. Well, brother, I want to say thank you for joining and being a dynamic individual that I can call on, and vice versa. You can call on me at any moment, at any time. I want to say also want to say thank you for being a black man that I can look to, a black man that I can, you know, take those mental pictures of at each moment to say, oh, he's great, he's awesome. But then it's also, yes, he is flawed. Yes, he is still improving. I think that's one thing that I love to pay attention to is the black men that are still improving and that are okay with improving. So again, I want to say thank you for joining. I want to say thank you to those that are listening, because this is another dynamic brother, another dope brother that we had on the podcast. And I got some things to plug too. I'm not gonna hold you. I got some things to
Yeah.
plug as well.
Well, I want to plug you really
Um,
quickly, yo, and then I want to hear
oh,
about the things you're plugging. But like
okay,
giving you your flowers in like real time
yeah,
because you have always shown up in a really authentic way. So the things that you were talking about on this podcast are just how you live your life,
yeah,
and the way that you are like right now building me up. Like you
mm-hmm,
do that to everybody and you do it all the time. It's just who you are, man. So
mm-hmm.
I just really appreciate you. I love you. I respect
Love you
you.
too.
I'm learning from you, man. Like I
Yeah,
do. And, I know like being a new husband and
mm-hmm.
again, being an amazing son, like, you are a model for like many people. And I don't know if you know that, but, a lot of us are paying attention to like how you continue to show up. It's just who you are. So Octavius, like really, really just appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, brother. You try to make me cry on this joint, bro.
It's real though. It's real.
No, I want to thank you for that because black man to black man, we don't hear that a lot, um, especially from one another.
Yeah.
Just that love factor, we don't hear that. So I want to say thank you. And I do, like, again, you said you're ready to plug some things. I am also ready
Yeah.
to do the same thing.
Let's hear it.
Um, so I know there are some things that obviously, what you see on my shirt right now is to celebrate, empower, and inspire Black boys.
Mm-hmm.
Brother Dwayne Wharton did buy some things buy some
Let's hear
merch from the OB shop. He bought a more collaboration, less competition shirt.
it. Mm-hmm.
That will be linked in the description below. Um, as well as my website. I have a website, octaviusblount.com. I changed it from urbanthinkermedia.com to octaviusblount.com just to give y'all full range of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like you said, I am a son. I am a new husband. We're picking up on 1 year in September. It went by fast. Again, yes, I'm a son. I'm a husband. I am an advocate for black men and boys in all kind of ways. Um, but I'm also a fighter when it comes down to I'm a fighter for love. I'm a fighter for respect of all. And I'm a fighter for this world that we live in, that we can just come together and just love each other. So before we end, I do want to say I do want to see you all next time with another dope brother here on the Middle Brother Podcast. Peace.